Here today does mark 100 days since Russia detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich on espionage charges, which he, his employer, and the U.S. government all deny. On Thursday, the Kremlin said it will allow the U.S. ambassador to see Gershkovich on a, quote, reciprocal basis after Ambassador Lynne Tracy visited him for the second time since his March arrest. Now, on the same day as Gershkovich's meeting with the U.S. ambassador, Russian embassy staff in this country were allowed access to a Russian national charged with cyber crimes in Ohio. So let's dive into this a bit deeper with former New Mexico governor and UN ambassador Bill Richardson. He's also the founder of the Richardson Center for Global Engagement. Governor, good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, you have an extensive history negotiating the release of Americans detained abroad. The Kremlin says that they've had certain contacts with the United States in the Gershkovich case, but that any negotiations must happen in, quote, complete silence. What does that mean, sir?
Well, that means that there's a Russia-U.S. channel, government-to-government channel. I think it's a good sign. Everybody's pessimistic. But I think the fact that there's access being given to the American ambassador, reciprocal access, the foreign ministry spokesman says that contacts are taking place. On the bad side, he's detained until August 30th, and you don't know when there's going to be a trial. I'm not involved in this one. We were involved in the Griner, Whelan, and the others. So I'm speculating. But I do think there's some flexibility that is being sent out by the Russians.
Yeah.
The fact that the relationship is getting worse every day, U.S.-Russia on many other issues,
is
doesn't
concerning.
help.
Yeah, it's unnerving. And I think a lot of us, everybody watching, when that date got moved from the end of May to the end of August, was really disappointed by that. When you talk about this reciprocal basis, Governor, is that a normal demand made in these types of situations?
Yes. We have been involved in those before, for instance, with Whelan 2 years ago in the Trump administration. Yes, in other words, reciprocal. All right, so you let us see your prisoner under international law. Consular access is demanded on both sides. And we respected that with a cybercrime person in the U.S. But I think this is a case, Marky, where you can't leave Paul Whelan behind. I think it has to be a package, Whelan and Evan, for two or maybe more Russians, not necessarily in the U.S. There's some in Brazil.
And China, you know, yeah. Mark Sweden in China. Why? And in your opinion, why do people like Whelan, like Mark Fogel, get so much of the media attention, Evan Gershkovich, and why are some of the others left out in these kinds of conversations? Well,
my center is working with several American hostages in Russia that are not as high profile. But obviously, Evan and Brittany Griner and Whelan and Gershkovich, they've been charged with espionage. It's not the case. They're not spies. One's a journalist, the other was a businessman. Whelan's been there almost 5 years. And he's been, I think, his sentence is 16 years. When we had the negotiations with Griner and Boot, we thought it would be a 2 for 2. But at the end, the Russians said, no, take 1 for 1. And I supported the president. I think the administration did the right thing. But we've got to find a way to bring Whelan
absolutely back home. And
he's forgotten.
And we talked to his brother this week. The family's still hoping for the same thing. My last question to you, sir, before I let you go. You know, we've seen all this media attention around Gershkovich, around Whelan. The other day I was watching TV and there was a commercial for Gershkovich. Journalism is not a crime, right? Does all of this media attention and this public pressure do much to help these people get released, or is it doing the opposite, do you think, for some of these countries like China and Russia?
Well, the government, the State Department, others may not agree, but I disagree. I think going public, talking about the threat to journalism, I think the Wall Street Journal has done a good job of exposing a lot of this. I think the Brittany Griner campaign, the WNBA, the basketball players, all of that is good, because it puts international pressure, even though they admit, oh, we don't like this, the Russians say that, it doesn't help. but I think it does.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.